The trade station was always busy, full of lights, noise, and aliens from 100 different worlds, but in one quiet, dirty corner of Dock C. Something or someone was always hiding. People passed that corner fast, covering their noses or turning their heads, because there, under piles of broken crates and old cloth, lived a small creature. No one knew where she came from or what species she was. Her skin was covered in grime, oil, and filth. Her hair was matted like tangled wires. But the worst thing was the smell. It was sharp, sour, and so strong it made even tough aliens gag. So they called her names Rot, Trash Thing, or that disgusting rat. No one cared who she was, and no one ever got close enough to ask. She never spoke, never begged, never moved much at all. She just sat there, arms around her knees, shaking, hiding from the world, until one day, a human named Jace walked by. Jace was a cargo loader. Not important, not rich, just another face among thousands, but he had eyes that noticed things most ignored. That day, he came to throw out scrap metal, tired from work and hungry. As he lifted a crate, he heard a soft, broken sound like a whimper. He turned his head, and in the shadows, he saw her. At first, he thought she was a pile of rags, but then her eyes opened, wide and scared. They were large, silver-purple, and filled with something he didn't expect. She didn't beg or speak. She just stared. Frozen like a cornered animal, he took a step closer, and she flinched like she was about to be hit. Jace stopped, raised his hands, and whispered, "It's okay. I won't hurt you." But she was already curling tighter, trying to disappear. The smell hit him hard, and he almost stepped back, but he didn't. He stood there for a moment, unsure what to do. Then he slowly placed his food packet on the ground. Just a few feet away, it was a simple sandwich, half-eaten, nothing special. He didn't say another word, just left it and walked away. That night, Jace couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about those eyes, about how she flinched from him. He had seen poor people, sick aliens, even orphans, but never someone so forgotten. The next morning, he brought extra food and walked to the same corner. The sandwich was gone, and so was the girl. He frowned, thinking maybe she moved or someone took her. But as he turned to leave, he heard soft breathing. She was back deeper in the shadows, holding the blanket tighter around herself. He didn't walk closer this time, just placed the food down and sat a little farther away. He talked to her softly, telling her his name, what he did. Silly stories about loading crates. She didn't speak, didn't move, but she listened. He came again the next day, and the next, and the next. On the 5th day, when he placed the food down, something happened. A small hand reached out from the shadows, shaking, hesitant. Fingers touched the packet, pulled it close, and disappeared again. Jace smiled, heart pounding. It was the first sign she was still alive inside. That night, he brought something else, a small, clean blanket. The next morning, she was wrapped in it, still shaking, but warmer. The smell was still strong, still painful to stand near. But Jace stayed. Others saw him and laughed, trying to pet the trash rat. One alien snorted, "She'll bite you or give you a disease." Another said. Jace didn't answer. He just looked at the girl in the corner. Now, slightly less scared, he saw past the dirt, the smell, the broken body. He saw a person, a child. Someone who needed help, and he couldn't walk away. He didn't know her name, her age, or her story. He didn't know what happened to her or who left her there. But he knew one thing: she didn't belong in the trash. No one did that night. Jace made a decision. He gathered warm water, soft cloths, and gentle soap. Tomorrow, he would try something no one else dared. He would give her a bath. Not to clean the smell for others, but to tell her, with actions, not words, you are not garbage. You are someone. And someone finally sees you. Jace returned the next day with a small backpack over his shoulder. He looked around carefully, checking for guards or watchers. People still whispered behind his back. Some laughed, others warned him, but he didn't care anymore. All he cared about was the girl hiding in the dark. She was there, as always, wrapped in the blanket he had given her. Her silver-purple eyes peeked out, wide and wary. The smell was still strong. It clung to the air like rot left in the sun. But Jace didn't flinch this time. He knelt nearby and opened the bag slowly. Inside were simple things: soft towels, a clean shirt, warm water in a sealed thermos, and soap, the gentle kind used for babies. The girl backed up when he pulled the items out. Her arms tightened around her body, as if expecting pain, but Jace didn't move close. He just smiled gently and spoke softly. "I brought warm water. It won't hurt, I promise," he said. She didn't answer, just watched, frozen like always. So he dipped a cloth in the water and wrung it out, steam rising in the cold air. Then, without touching her, he wiped his own face and arms in front of her. "See, it feels good," he whispered. "No pain, just warmth." Minutes passed. Finally, with trembling fingers, she inched forward. Jace set the cloth down between them and stepped back. She looked at him, then at the cloth. Very slowly, she picked it up. She dabbed her face, her arms, her legs, each movement small and careful, like she expected the cloth to bite her. When the cloth came away black with dirt, she paused. She stared at it, then at her own hands, now showing light violet skin beneath the grime. Tears welled in her eyes. Jace watched quietly, not saying a word. He didn't help unless she asked. He wanted her to choose this, to know she had control. And she did. Bit by bit, she wiped her face, her arms, her legs. The cloth grew darker with every touch. The smell faded, not gone, but less sharp now. She looked less like a creature and more like a girl. Jace opened a sealed pouch with fresh clothes, soft pants, a loose shirt, and tiny socks. "I thought these might fit," he said, laying them down. She didn't take them right away, but her eyes lingered on them. He also placed a new blanket next to her. "Clean and warm. Yours," he said gently. "All of it." She picked up the shirt first, clutching it to her chest like it was treasure. The blanket came next, soft against her cheek as she nuzzled it. She didn't speak, but her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Jace didn't try to comfort her. Not yet. He just sat there, waiting, watching, letting her feel whatever she needed. After some time, she changed behind a pile of crates. When she stepped out, she looked like a different being, still thin, still tired, but clean and wrapped in the new blanket like a child after a storm. Her eyes met his, unsure, but not afraid. This time, and then something rare happened. She gave him a small, awkward nod. Jace smiled. "You're safe now," he said. He reached into the bag and pulled out food, real food this time. Warm soup, soft bread, and fruit juice. She sat down near him, not touching, but closer than before. She ate slowly, tasting every bite like it was a dream. Jace talked while she ate. He told her stories about space haulers. Silly things like how he once dropped a crate on his foot and limped for a week. He didn't expect her to laugh, but she smiled just a little. And that smile was enough. It was like watching the sun rise in a frozen world. He asked, softly, "Do you have a name?" She looked down, silent. Then she whispered something almost too soft to hear. "Luma." Jace blinked, then nodded. "Luma, that's beautiful." She flinched like she didn't believe him. But deep inside, something lit up. The next few minutes passed in peaceful silence, for the first time in what felt like forever. She wasn't cold, hungry, or in pain. She had food, a blanket, and someone who didn't treat her like trash. And Jace, sitting beside her, felt something shift in his chest too. This wasn't just pity anymore. It was care, maybe even the beginning of something deeper. She wasn't just a creature in the corner now. She had a name, she had warmth, and maybe just maybe a future. Luma, her name was Luma. The sound of it echoed softly in Jace's mind as he walked back to his quarters. He kept repeating it under his breath like it was something precious, because it was. It had taken days to reach that one word, but now? She had spoken. She had looked into his eyes and trusted him enough to say it. Not loud, not strong, but real. And that changed everything. The next day, Jace returned with 2 cups of warm soup. Luma was sitting cross-legged now, wrapped in her blanket and waiting. She still didn't smile much. But her eyes lit up when she saw him. He handed her the cup, and she took it without fear. They sat side by side, sipping quietly. "Luma," he said softly, "do you remember anything from before the station?" She lowered her gaze, her fingers tightening on the cup. "A ship," she whispered, loud. Then cold. Then nothing. Jace nodded slowly, not pushing her, "I think." "They left me here," she added, voice shaking. Then silence. Heavy and cold like the metal walls around them. Jace didn't ask more, not yet. Instead, he pulled out something new, a tiny music player with a single earbud. He placed it near. "Her music," he said, pressing play. Soft, peaceful tunes filled the air. Luma tilted her head and listened, her body relaxing just a little. "Beautiful," she whispered, almost to herself. Each day after that, Jace brought her something. A toothbrush, a soft brush for her hair, clean underclothes, a little toy shaped like a cat. He didn't know her age, but she acted like a child rediscovering life. One morning, as he combed her now cleaner hair, she giggled, just once. Light and quick, but it froze him. He had never heard her laugh before. That sound stayed in his chest all day. Luma started copying things he did. She watched how he held a spoon, then mimicked it exactly. When he used hand gestures while talking, she tried them too. One day she whispered, "I like soup." Jace dropped his spoon in surprise, then smiled so big it hurt his cheeks. "You're learning fast," he said proudly. "Because you talk slow and kind," she replied shyly. He laughed at that, ruffling her soft purple hair. Soon, she started helping him clean her space. She folded her blanket, stacked food boxes neatly, even brushed her teeth with focus. But not everyone on the station was happy. One worker saw her walking next to Jace and shouted, "Keep that thing away from normal people." Luma shrank behind Jace instantly, trembling. Jace turned and stared hard at the man. "She's cleaner than your soul," he said calmly. The worker muttered and walked off, but the damage was done. Luma's smile was gone for the rest of the day. That night, Jace sat beside her in silence. She didn't eat, didn't speak, just stared at the floor. Then he said, "You know what I see when I look at you?" Luma didn't answer. "I see someone strong, someone brave. Someone still standing after all that pain." He leaned forward. "They don't matter." "Luma, they never did." She looked at him slowly, her lips trembling. Then, for the first time, she moved closer and rested her head on his shoulder. Jace froze, afraid to break the moment. Her body was still small, fragile. But it was warm now, alive. He placed his arm gently around her, careful and soft. For the first time, she didn't flinch. He knew then this wasn't just about helping a stranger. Luma had become a part of his life. Not a mission, not a pity project, but someone he cared for deeply that night. He made a new space for her in his small quarters, a corner with a soft bedroll, a small light, and drawings he printed of stars and moons. When he showed her, she gasped. "For me?" He nodded. Of course. She looked around like she was seeing a palace. Then she turned, hugged him tightly, and whispered, "Thank you, Jace." She had never said his name before. He hugged her back, heart full, and for the first time. Luma slept not on cold metal, but in a warm space with someone who truly cared. The station's artificial morning lights hummed softly as Jace opened his eyes. He turned over and looked toward the small corner of his quarters. Luma was still. Asleep, curled under the blanket like a child in a cocoon. Her breathing was slow and peaceful, no shaking, no cries in the night. It had been a full week since she said her name. Each day brought something new. Luma now brushed her own hair, ate meals with him, and even asked simple questions. "What is that?" she asked once, pointing to his worn tool belt. Jace had smiled and handed it to her, letting her feel the weight of it. "It's for fixing broken things," he said. She held it carefully, her fingers tracing the edges. "Fix, broken. Like me?" she asked, voice so small it nearly shattered his heart. He knelt beside her and said, "You were never broken, Luma, just forgotten." The air between them had changed. She no longer looked at him with fear, but with quiet curiosity. She still didn't talk much, but she listened deeply, and today would be different. Jace had something special planned, a simple surprise, but something that might bring a little more light to her eyes. He had built a small projector out of spare parts and loaded it with pictures of Earth, forests, oceans, birds flying over, mountains, kids playing in snow. He set it up in the corner where she now spent most of her time. Luma sat cross-legged, wearing a clean, oversized shirt, her soft purple hair falling neatly around her shoulders. Jace turned on the projector and stepped back. Images danced across the Walgreen trees, swaying in the wind. Rivers gliding through valleys. Luma's eyes grew wide, her mouth slightly open. She reached out as if to touch the glowing light. "That's called a tree," Jace said. "It gives air, shade, and fruit." She pointed again. "Water." "River," he nodded. "It sings when it moves." She giggled softly. The sound quick and shy. Then came the moment, one small breath of magic. Her lips curved up into a smile. Not forced, not afraid, but real and pure. Jace's breath caught in his chest. It was the first time she had smiled, truly smiled. Her silver-purple eyes gleamed like starlight. That single smile said more than words ever could. It said, "Thank you." It said, "I trust you." And it said, "I feel safe." Jace smiled back. "Eyes a little wet. I've been waiting for that," he said gently. Luma blinked, confused. "For what?" "That," he pointed. "Your smile." She touched her cheek, not understanding, but smiled again anyway. The moment was perfect, but trouble, as always, was nearby that afternoon. While walking through the lower deck to get supplies, they ran into 3 traders. One of them, a thick-scaled lizard alien, wrinkled his nose and scoffed. "You still dragging that stink rat around?" he hissed. Luma froze beside Jace, her small hand grabbing his sleeve tightly. Jace stared hard at the man. "Say that again," he said in a calm, low voice. The trader chuckled. "You think cleaning her up makes her one of us? She's still trash." Luma shook, her eyes filling with fear. Jace took a slow breath, then stepped forward. "She has a name," he said. "Luma, remember it, because one day you'll regret not doing so." The trader spat near their feet and walked off. Laughing with his friends, Jace looked down at Luma, who was staring at the floor, her shoulders trembling. He knelt beside her. "Don't listen to them. They only see the outside, not the heart." She didn't answer, but leaned into his arms quietly. He held her there for a while, letting the silence wrap around them like a second blanket. That night, Luma didn't sleep in her corner. She quietly walked over and curled up beside Jace on the main mattress. He didn't move, just smiled. She whispered, "They don't like me," Jace replied. "They don't know you, but I do." In the dark, she whispered again, "You think I can be like others?" "No," he said. "You can be better, The next day, something unexpected happened. Luma woke up early and asked, "Can I help?" Jace blinked. "Help with what?" "Your work," she said, standing with the blanket still wrapped around her like a cape. He chuckled. "All right." But no lifting heavy crates. He taught her how to organize parts, use the cleaning tools, and sort supplies. Other workers watched in silence, unsure of what to say. Some looked surprised. Others scoffed and walked away. But one or two nodded quietly. A mechanic even said, "Ah, she's fast." Jace smiled. "She's learning." That evening, Luma looked at her reflection in the polished surface of a crate. She tilted her head, touched her cheeks, and smiled at herself, then turned to Jace and said, "I'm not trash." He smiled back and whispered, "You never were." Luma's days began to feel normal. She woke up each morning in her little corner beside Jace, washed her face, brushed her hair, and smiled when he handed her breakfast. Sometimes she helped him sort tools or count supplies, and other times she sat quietly while watching old videos of earth animals on his tablet. Her favorite was a dog with floppy ears who jumped in snow. She giggled every time it fell. But even with peace around them, trouble was not far. The space station was a place of rules, strict rules. Every person, every alien had to be registered, tracked and scanned. Luma was not. Jace knew this, and he tried to keep her hidden in plain sight. He taught her how to walk calmly, how to nod politely, how to act like she belonged. One afternoon, they were walking through the food market. Jace handed Luma a piece of sweet bread, and she took it with both hands, eyes shining. Just as she took her first bite, a voice called out behind them, "Hey, you, hold it." Jace turned to see too. Station guards approaching fast. The taller one, with cybernetic eyes, pointed at Luma. "Is she with you?" Jace stood tall. "Yes, she's under my care." The guard narrowed his eyes, scanning Luma up and down. "No tag, no ID, no record. She's not registered. That's a violation." Luma shrank behind Jace instantly, dropping the bread in. Fear Jace placed a hand behind him protectively. "She's recovering. She's not ready for registration," he said firmly. The second guard scoffed. "Not ready or hiding something?" "She's a child," Jace replied, voice low. "She's been through enough." The first guard stepped forward. "That's not your choice, human. You have 24 hours to bring her in for proper scans or we remove her ourselves." They turned and left. Leaving silence behind them, Luma was shaking. Her fingers clutched Jace's shirt. He looked down and said gently, "It's okay. I won't let them take you," but deep inside, he wasn't sure what would happen next, back in his quarters. Jace paced the room while Luma sat quietly, holding the blanket tightly. "They'll come back," he muttered. "And if they scan her, and she's not registered." He didn't finish the sentence. Luma looked up. "Are they going to throw me away again?" Jace stopped moving, his heart twisting. "No," he said, kneeling beside her. "You're not garbage. You're not going anywhere without me." That night, Jace contacted an old friend, a retired medic named Marn, who now worked with forgotten species and orphaned aliens. Marn agreed to meet secretly in the lower repair tunnels, far from the main scanners, the next day. Jace and Luma made their way through dim halls and silent vents. Luma stayed close, one hand gripping his belt as they moved. They finally reached a small maintenance room where Marn was waiting. Marn was an older woman, human, with silver hair and a gentle smile. She looked at Luma with curious eyes. "This her?" Jace nodded. "Her name's Luma Marn. Knelt," her voice soft. "Hi, Luma. I'm here to help." Luma looked at her, unsure, then slowly nodded. Marn ran some non-invasive scans, checking basic vitals and blood types. What she found made her eyebrows raise. "This isn't normal," she said slowly. "Her blood, it has markers I haven't seen in years, not from any common race." Jace leaned forward. "What does that mean?" Marn turned the screen toward him, showing lines of data. It means she's rare, very rare, genetically altered, maybe even royal blood. Luma blinked, confused. Royal. Special, Marna explained. Important, Jace sat back. Stunned, he looked at Luma, now hugging herself again. They had called her trash. Yet she might be something priceless. But if the guards find out, Marn warned, they might try to take her. Not as a person, but as a subject. Jace's hands tightened into fists. They'll have to go through me first. He said coldly. Marn nodded. Then get her. Off the station, somewhere safe. I can't just leave, Jace said. My job. My room. She's your family now, Marn said firmly. Choose her. That night, Jace packed a small bag with food, clothes, and medical supplies. Luma watched him quietly. He finally turned and said, Atta. We might have to run. Luma stood up, walked over, and took his hand. I'll go where you go, she whispered. The next morning, before the sun lamps brightened, Jace and Luma disappeared into the cargo tunnels. They had no plan, no ship, and no clear path. But they had something stronger: each other. The lower decks of the station were cold and quiet. Few people came down here unless they had something to hide. Jace and Luma moved through old tunnels, passing rusted pipes and flickering lights. They stopped near an old fuel bay, no longer in use. It was dark, but dry and hidden. For now, it would be their shelter. Luma didn't complain. She sat on a crate with her blanket wrapped around her, watching Jace fix a small heater. She had changed so much since the first time he saw her, but now danger followed every step they took. The station guards had checked his quarters that morning. They were looking for her. Jace kept replaying Marn's words in his head. Royal blood, altered genes, someone important. He looked at Luma again, her soft purple skin glowing faintly in the dim light. How could someone like her have been thrown away like trash? Later that night, Jace opened the medical scanner Marn had given him. He had avoided using it too much, but now he needed answers. Luma, he said gently, can I scan you again? She nodded, her silver eyes trusting him completely. The scanner whirred softly as it passed over her chest and arms. This time, Jace noticed strange symbols in the Data Royal tags, sealed DNA codes, and family markers, all hidden deep in her. Blood, not just any family, a bloodline tied to an old galactic empire that vanished after a brutal war. Luma looked at the screen, not understanding. Jace pointed at the symbols. These show you're from a special family, maybe a princess. Maybe more, Luma stared at him, confused. But I was dirty, she whispered. They called me trash. Jace shook his head. You were never trash. They just didn't see you clearly. He showed her pictures of the royal family from old records, alien nobles with glowing skin. Like hers, she looked like one of them. The same eyes, the same glow, and one of the images. A child, smaller, with her exact features. Under the image was a name in old script, Princess Luma of Averin. She gasped softly, her fingers covering her mouth. That's me, she whispered. I remember that room. The lights, bits of memory rushed back, soft voices, music, her mother singing. The night the lights turned red and everything fell apart. They took me, she said, her voice shaking, and put me in a dark ship, then left me on the station. Jace felt a storm inside. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a royal child left to rot while the galaxy moved on. He knelt before her, holding her hand. You're not alone anymore, he said, and now we know the truth. They won't take you again. But as he said those words, a sharp buzz echoed through the tunnel. Jace stood up fast, grabbing a metal bar. Shadows moved beyond the door, station guards, scanning for signs of life. Go, he whispered. Pulling Luma behind crates, they crouched low, hearts pounding. Through a crack in the wall, Jace watched the guards pass slowly, their scanners glowing blue. One paused, frowning. "This area has power readings," he said. "Could be smugglers," said another. "Keep moving," the leader barked. "Wheel, circle back." As soon as their footsteps faded, Jace and Luma slipped out through an emergency hatch. They ran through the vent system, dodging security eyes. Luma never let go of his hand. Her legs were small, but she kept running. They finally stopped. Near the station's hidden shuttle docks, Jace bent over, breathing hard. "We have to leave," he said. "Now? But where?" Luma asked, her voice trembling. He looked at her, eyes steady, to the stars. "Somewhere they can't reach us." Marn was waiting in the shadows. Holding a data chip, she handed it to Jace. "This has her full DNA log. Proof of her identity. It may help someday." Jace nodded. "Thank you for everything." Marn looked at Luma and smiled sadly. "They'll come for her if word gets out. Protect her." The shuttle was small, barely enough room for two. Jace loaded what supplies he had: food, medicine, water. Luma climbed in and sat beside him. Looking back once at the station, she didn't cry. Not this time. She just held his hand tightly as the shuttle lifted off. The stars opened before them. Luma leaned against his shoulder and whispered, "Am I really a princess?" Jace smiled and looked at her softly. "You are, but to me, you're something even more important." She tilted her head, curious. "Your family," he said. Luma smiled again, not because she was royal, but because, for the first time in her life, she felt loved. The stars stretched endlessly outside the shuttle window. Luma sat with her face pressed against the glass, eyes wide with wonder. It was her first time seeing the galaxy from this side of the darkness. No longer locked away in a corner, no longer hidden behind crates and shadows. Now she was moving, free, and next to her sat the only person who ever treated her like she mattered. Jace worked quietly at the controls, guiding the shuttle through old trade routes. He kept them away from scanners, jumping between safe zones. Using every trick he had learned over the years, they had no destination at first. Only one goal: safety. But Luma's presence changed that. After a few days of travel, she started asking questions. "Where do I belong?" She whispered one night as they sat eating warm soup from metal cups. Jace looked at her, thinking carefully. "You belong where you're loved," he said, "not where you were thrown." Luma blinked. "Is that with you?" Jace smiled and nodded. "Yes, if you want it to be." She smiled softly, her fingers gently wrapping around the cup. But destiny was not finished with her yet. Jace received a coded message 2 days later from a hidden relay. Someone had broken the encryption and found records of Princess Luma's bloodline. They wanted to speak urgently. It came from the planet Terrelia, once part of the fallen empire. Now a peaceful sanctuary world. The message said her grandmother might still be alive. A former queen who had escaped during the fall. Jace didn't know if it was true. But he showed Luma the message. Her hands trembled as she read the words. I had a grandmother. "Maybe," Jace said softly. "We can go, but only if you choose." Luma stayed silent for a long time, staring into space. Then she nodded. "I want to know where I came from, but only if you come too." Jace placed a hand on her shoulder. "I wouldn't let you go alone." They reached Terrelia 2 days later, the green planet glowing under twin suns. A small diplomatic ship guided them to land. Luma gripped Jace's hand the whole time, her fingers strong, despite her small frame. At the landing bay, a group of alien officials waited in silence. Among them stood an old woman with silver hair and glowing eyes, soft, sad, but sharp when her eyes met Luma's. She gasped. She stepped forward slowly. "Luma." Luma froze, her lips parted. The old woman knelt and opened her arms. "My child, we thought you were gone." Luma walked forward slowly, unsure, then suddenly ran into her arms for the first time. Someone from her past held her with love. Jace watched from a distance, his heart full. He was ready to leave quietly, not wanting to interfere, but then the queen turned toward him. "You," she said, "are the one who kept her alive." He nodded, unsure of what to say. The queen stepped forward and bowed her head. "We owe you everything," she said. Jace felt awkward, rubbing the back of his neck. "I just gave her a bath, a blanket, and a place to rest," he said softly. "No," the queen said. "You gave her a reason to live." They brought him into the palace, a small structure hidden in the mountains. There Luma was dressed in soft robes, her hair brushed with silver threads. She looked like royalty now, but still ran to Jace. First, when excited, she showed him the gardens, the warm ponds, and a room filled with glowing stones. "You're staying, right?" she asked one night, sitting beside him under the stars. "I don't belong here," he said quietly. "This is your home." Luma looked at him with hurt in her eyes. "My home is with you," she whispered. And that was all it took. The queen made the announcement a week later. Princess Luma had returned. Crowds came to see her, not as a creature from the trash, but as a symbol of survival and hope. And by her side stood a simple human in cargo boots and a worn jacket. Jace was offered medals, riches, even a title. He refused them all, except one small thing, a room beside Luma's. He stayed because she wanted him to, because he knew she'd never smiled the same without him nearby. One day, while they sat in the palace library, Luma leaned her head on his shoulder. "I used to think I was dirty, unwanted," she whispered. "And now?" he asked gently. "Now I know I was just waiting to be found." Jace smiled, his voice soft. "You were never trash, Luma. You were treasure, just buried deep."